Camera, action.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another review, and today we're going to be talking about a movie called The Rivals of Amziah King. So before we get into anything, I don't even know how to describe this movie or really even how to put this movie into a full synopsis like I normally do on the channel, so I'm just going to read the IMDb synopsis so you guys get an idea of it. Amziah King, beekeeper, musician, and anchor of his community, reunites with former foster daughter Kateri after many years apart and fends off threats to his honey business. Now, reading that, there's a lot more in that movie than just the synopsis, but there is just no way to fully describe this movie. So this is a movie that was put on my radar about a year ago when it premiered at South by Southwest. People came out of the movie raving about it. It was a lot of people's favorites of the festival, which ended up turning into being a lot of people's favorites of that year. And it was really cool to hear that Matthew McConaughey was back. He's an actor I really enjoy and love. So happy to have him back in a leading role. It's always good to see him. So this was a movie that I was really looking forward to. It just had no distribution. And finally, it came out in August, and today's the day. And I've seen it twice now, so let's discuss it. So starting off with some of the things I really enjoyed about this movie, one being is that it really is something original. It's something that I have never seen before. Just like I said in my intro just a second ago, that this is something that I can't describe. Even watching the trailer, I wouldn't be able to know how to put into words what all this movie is about, what all is in store for you that you're about to see. And even people that came out of South by Southwest were like, I really don't know how to describe it because it's such a genre-bending movie and literally interweaves so many genres together that it is something very unique and something original, and it is something that I have just never seen before in this type of context. I think the story is really unique in itself because, I mean, it is similar to stories that we've seen before, but really told in its own way. Like, the beginning of this movie, the first, hour or so is almost like this musical redneck comedy in a way, and it really leans into that. But then all of a sudden, in its second and third act, it takes a shift where it turns into more of this heist movie that also then eventually becomes this revenge thriller movie. And it does a really great job of kind of putting all that together and really blending those genres so well that it, like I said, it just tells a really unique story. Now, it is a story, obviously, with, the revenge stuff and, the heist stuff. Of course, we've seen all that in aspects of movies before. But like I said, this one does stuff in a very different, unique way that I felt was just very unconditional storytelling. And like I said, it just made it really unique in its own way. So I give it props for being original and taking things that we've seen before and really making it something different, and also really going in ways that's really unexpected. Speaking of stuff going in unexpected, one of the things I really appreciated about this movie, but it's also, I'll talk about later on in another aspect of it, is that this movie goes in directions I was never expecting at all. Like, it literally does a couple things here and there that I don't see coming at all. I think it catches you so off guard with the stuff that it sets up really in the whole first act of the movie that by the time you get into the second and third act, which is more of, like I said, the heist and the revenge part, it is really unexpected, like with what the stuff that takes place in this second part of this journey that you go on. So I thought that was something that was also really unique and something I really appreciated in the fact that it was just a lot of stuff that you did not see coming. This movie also has some shocking moments as well that I was not expecting. So not only does it pull the rug out from under you in certain aspects, but it also has some shocking moments. Like there's a scene that happens, which I'm not going to say anything about, but is legit a very bloody, brutal scene that I was not expecting at all. That rivals some horror movie gore, for that matter, that I was like, whoa, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. And it's played for that comedic side of it, and it lands it perfectly. You think something like that would be so shocking and so unexpected would kind of take you off guard a little bit, and it does, but it plays it into that humor so well that you cannot help but to laugh and have just a good time with it. So they do such a great job, like I just said, of having those moments, but blending all the genres that they're going for together in one movie that wouldn't normally work in this sense, especially with the story that it's telling, but I think it does it in a really special way. I think the acting across the board is fantastic. I think this is a story that is all about characters and character development and character driven, and it really has great writing when it comes to the characters overall. I think Matthew McConaughey, like I just said in my intro, it is great to see him back again. I love seeing him. And this is a movie where he was born to play this role. There is no other actor that I could ever see playing this role but him. And in this role, he's so infectious in the role. He's so just contagious. Like you just want to be around him and know more about this guy and hang out more with this guy. And I think he's just a great character. And like I said, he's just the perfect person for this character. There's nobody else that could have played it. I think the actress that plays his foster daughter, Angelina Lookingglass, this is the first movie she's been in. I think she's really great. I think there's something about her where she has this innocence to her in the beginning, and it's almost she kind of has this coming of age moment in this movie as well. And, I'm trying to tiptoe around stuff without giving stuff away or giving big plot points away. But she has to grow as this movie goes, and I think it's interesting to see how she kind of goes from this sweet, innocent person to really growing into becoming this other person and really taking on and learning this business and whatnot and the things that she has to go through and overcome in this movie. I think she's really great at that. She has great chemistry with Matthew McConaughey and all the other side characters that are in this movie. And I think that there is great chemistry with everybody. I like even all of the side characters. Some of the side characters are hilarious. Some it's just really a movie. It's like I said, it's really character driven and character developed. So all of these characters just have great chemistry with each other. All the actors looked like they have great camaraderie with each other. And it's a movie that I think really latches onto that, because really what the overall theme of the movie is. If you did not have a movie where none of our characters had any chemistry whatsoever, I think the movie would have absolutely felt flat. But thankfully, this is a movie where every character works. You find something in every character, and it's a movie that really, even though you get limited screen time with certain characters, you still care about them. You still are wanting to know what their journey is, what their story is. You still become invested in their characters and really find yourself wanting to know more about them, even though some characters, like I said, get more screen time than others, and you do find out a little bit more about certain characters than others. But even in that short amount of time, you learn to really care about all the characters. And it's just something, as the story goes, that you really find yourself really latching into and falling in love with every single character, which I think is rare in a lot of movies, because there's a lot of movies that really just have like a main character and whatnot, or a main two characters, and that's really the two focal points of the entire movie, and that's all you really focus on, and the other characters just pop up here and there. And yes, while it is the same way in this movie, like I said, but this one, just there's something special in the sauce that really makes you care about every single character, no matter their screen time. Which is something in particular I want to give a shout out and talk about this movie, is the writing. I think the writing is really unique in this movie as well, because everything feels real, especially in that first hour where we're really learning a lot about these characters and really getting to know a lot of these characters. Everything just feels so authentic and real. It's almost like the first hour is almost like this slice of life movie where we've just, as an audience, entered these people's lives and we're just watching their day to day, how everything plays out, and it kind of makes you want more of that as the movie goes along. But for that first hour, you're really like in this slice of life movie, and you really are invested in everything that's going on, and the conversations and the back and forth and whatnot with all these characters just feels so authentic and real. And so I got to give hats off to the writing. It was just really good writing. And I feel like one of the biggest pieces of this movie is the music. I think like the music in this movie, not only just the music that they play in the movie as like their songs, but as like the score too. I think all of it is fantastic. There's something so special in the like the score of this movie, to where there's certain scenes that are going on that the music just plays so much into what is happening. and it just lifts the scene up even more. And then the scenes with the music where it's like Matthew McConaughey's band that are playing these songs, all the songs are so good. They're so good and so infectious and so just, I don't know, they pulled me into the movie even more than what I already was. And I just something I really latched onto. I'm a big music person anyway, so that's something I really latched onto. And there is a scene in particular where he first brings his foster daughter back to his house, and he's showing her the song that he plays, and he gets the rest of the band to come over and whatnot and to start playing this song. That scene, I don't know what it was, but I was so enthralled with that scene that when the song kicked in like fully and they started singing, I just got full body goosebumps. There was something in that moment that I felt was just so special, and I really loved it. So music is a massive part of this movie, and again, just like I said with the characters, with the themes of the movie, I don't think if they just like if with the characters, if they didn't nail that part, if they didn't nail the music and the whole that whole side of the music that they were going for, I don't think it would have worked as well as it did. But thankfully, they absolutely nailed the music. The music is fantastic. And I love the themes that are in this movie. I think the themes are so crucial to the story that they're telling about community and family and how music brings people together and all that stuff like that. I love all that because it's so tastefully done and so well done throughout the entire movie that I love it to where there's even parts in this movie that parallel with others that I find very interesting. Like there is a scene near the beginning of the movie where Amziah is talking to Kateri and like they're out at the bees and he's doing this whole speech and monologue about the bees and the community of the bees and the different types of bees and whatnot. And everything that he says in that monologue really parallels stuff that happens with Kateri throughout the movie, even up to the end of the movie, which watching it a second time, you really feel more of that and really catch on to more of that. And there's even scenes later on that feels like maybe throwaway dialogue that somebody just throws out of nowhere that come full circle at the end of the movie that actually happens. You're like, oh, that's that thing that so-and-so said like 45 minutes to an hour ago, so it's all coming back through. I love little scenes like that that are very parallel with things that are going on in the movie because I just think it brings everything full circle. And this movie did that a couple times, but I really enjoy how it touched on that and how those scenes with the, like I said, I love the idea with the monologue with this colony and community of bees and the different kind of bees and whatnot, how all that runs parallel to Kateri's character. I just think I love that. I just think it's really well done. But the whole theme of like community and family and music bringing people together and all that stuff like I just talked about, I think it's something really cool to have in this movie because it fits with everything that is going on. And like I said, that also runs parallel to like the stuff that I just talked about that I think is really cool. But it also has this feel to it to where it makes it feel more like a connective human story. There's something in here, like I said, in the first half really feels like a slice of life movie. And with having all that in there, it just makes it more of a human element, a human condition story where it's telling the story of these characters, but it's characters that you really care about, really connect with, and really find yourself being like, I've been in a community like that, or I've loved, elements like that in my community, or something like that that allows us as the audience something to really latch into and really see ourselves could be a part of that community or be in this little niche circle of musicians or whatever it may be. And I absolutely love that. I think that was just something that makes the movie so human and so relatable in that mark. And also there's something very heartwarming in that as well. There's something so comforting and it just brings a smile to my face. It's just something that we don't get a lot of anymore in movies, having that so much of that human connection. And it's something I really, really loved about this movie. And like I said in the beginning, I think this movie does a really great job of being able to kind of balance all these different elements of this movie. Like I said, it's almost like a story of two halves. It's like you have all this stuff in the beginning, and then like I said, it becomes like this heist movie, and then like this revenge thriller by the end of it. And I think all that is really unique in itself to kind of have all that into one movie and being able to kind of, jumble all that together. But I think it's done really well. There's never really a lot that kind of takes away from the other. There is a point in the movie that I'll talk about in my mixed segment that kind of, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But as for being able to really juggle a lot of that stuff and having all that stuff in the same movie, I feel like it was really well done. Like, I feel like most people struggle with one genre, maybe trying to put two genres in there, but being able to kind of take a movie like this and making it as funny as it was in really the beginning and then taking on these other two elements of it, I thought it was really well done. Like, it was a really well blended together movie. Like I said, it's just a genre bender. It's a movie that I could not describe to somebody if I really wanted to. The only thing I could really tell you to do is go see it. So I really appreciated the fact that they were able to kind of find that fine line balance between all of these different types of genres that they wanted to do, and they were able to pull it off in such a nice way. I think the movie is incredibly shot, too. There's something about the way that they go about shooting a lot of the scenes in this movie that just look incredible. Like, I think the whole scene of Matthew McConaughey where he's talked about in interviews and whatnot, where he's holding the queen bee and like all these bees swarm his arm, and how none of that was CGI, how that was all, real bees and actually him doing that. I think that particular scene, there's something about it that is almost just like magical. There's something that's really beautiful in the way that it's shot and the way that they've, done the blocking for the scene and whatnot like that. I think all that is really very beautiful to look at, and it, like I said, it's just a really unique scene anyway. But there's moments like that all through the movie. Like, there's just something special about the entire movie. I can't describe what it is. Even the beginning scene where they're all like in this Dairy Queen Sonic looking restaurant meeting up and playing music. There's something so unique about that and the way that it looks all throughout it. Like I said, I can't describe what it is, but it's just really visually appealing to look at. And really that carries all the way through the movie. Now moving into my mixed elements about the movie, and one being is I'm going to try to figure out how to go about saying all this without giving anything away, because there is plot points in this movie that I do not want to spoil or do not want to give away whatsoever. But there comes a point in probably the second act of the movie where a particular scene happens where it kind of transitions into that heist style side of the movie that can be very jarring for a lot of people, because it's almost like a whiplash moment. And it was for me. Like I said, I've seen the movie twice, and upon the first viewing, I was like, did they really do that? Are you sure that they did that? And it was one of those moments that kind of took me a little while to kind of sit back and let it settle in. And I don't know if it really ever did settle in the first time I watched it, because this is a 2-hour movie, and at that point, you still had an hour and some change left. So I was kind of almost in just like this shocked moment throughout the rest of the movie the first time I watched it. And so that's another reason I wanted to give it a fair shake. But I will have to say, for me in particular, I don't think that the second half of this movie is as strong as the first half. I think this first half, when everybody's together and it's this whole, community thing about it and whatnot, like I said, that whole theme and everything that's running through it, I feel all that is very much stronger than the second act of the film. With all that being said, I don't think it takes away anything of the second act of the film, and the third act or whatever, the second half of the film, I should say. But I think there's something so special in that first half of the movie that just doesn't carry over to the second half. And I wish it did. I really wish it did. Like I said, I know people saw this movie and thought it was fantastic. They loved every bit of it, and I can totally understand why. I still overall enjoyed the hell out of this movie. But this, I just felt like the first half was so much stronger in the second act than the second half. I feel like they lose a lot of that magic that they had going and a lot of the momentum that they had going, because when it turns into this, it kind of loses focus on other characters and kind of focuses solely on one character, which I totally get, because it's becoming their story and it's becoming their journey. So I totally understand why they did it. I just felt like I wish there was something they could have done to make the second half of the movie as magical and as strong as the first half. But like I mentioned in my positive, I still like that in that second half, there's still a lot of those parallels to like the monologue that Matthew McConaughey had, and it really journeys through with that other character. And like I said, that carries all the way through the end of the movie, which is something I really enjoyed. And that's something I still appreciated about it, but that's why it's in my mixed things, because for me, it was really jarring and kind of really took me a minute. So watching it on the second time, I kind of knew what to expect, so I was more locked in and ready to more pay attention to really more of the second act or the second half, and to really, understand more what was happening, and I wanted to get into it more because of that, because I felt like that moment could be really jarring. But again, it's one of those movies that, yes, it's a slice of life movie. Life doesn't always go the way that we think it's going to. Things like this happen in life, whatnot. So I appreciated that they went that route. I think it was ballsy to go that route. And while it may take a lot of people out or ruin the movie for some people, I wouldn't say it ruined the movie for me, but it did take me out of it. But it is one of those things you kind of have to get used to as you're transitioning into the second half. And while I still really enjoy the movie overall, that was just a big moment for me that I was kind of just like, man, I just wish this second half was just a little bit stronger. But that could be me. I could just be on an island on that. So that's just my personal opinion. But I still really enjoyed the movie overall. But that is just my opinion on that particular moment. I wish I could say more, but I just don't want to spoil anything. One of my other mixed elements of this movie is the character of Kateri. While I think, like I said, the actress does a fantastic job of everything she has to do in this movie, I feel like her character as the movie goes becomes almost a very complicated character, because there is, I think, decisions that she makes in this movie and choices that she makes in this movie that might not really settle well with audience members. They might be like, over all of this over that, and something like of the extent of that, or why would you go that to do all that for this? It's just one of those things where I felt like you're either on board for it or you're not. But it's one of those things where I just feels like she becomes such a complicated character in those moments that, as an audience member, you're like, damn, I know I've been with her from the entire movie, but can I still root for her in the decisions that she's made? Can I still pull for her in those decisions? And while it is something that is mixed for me, I still was on board with the character. I still wanted to see this journey through. I wanted to see where she went and the decisions she made by the end of the day, and where everything led to by the end of it. So I was still fully on board, but I can totally see how a lot of audience members can really look at her character with some of the decisions that she made and be like, really? Like, all that for this? You're really going to go that far for this? So I can understand it, but like I said, it's what kind of drives the movie going forward and into the third act. So that's just something, again, it's something I can't talk about because it's more of a plot point. I don't want to give anything away. So I'm sorry for being so vague, but it's just a movie that, like I said, there's so much going on that I just don't want to give anything away. My last mixed element about this movie is that I feel like once we get into the second half of the movie as well, it almost takes on a completely different pace. Now, I'm not saying that the pace completely slows down to a screeching halt or anything like that, but it is a much slower paced movie in the second half. I feel like the first half is, like I said, more of this vibrant, really exciting, funny stuff that's going on, and really kind of you're on board with everything that's happening, and then all of a sudden it kind of takes this dip in the second half to where it just feels slower. It's a much slower paced movie. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I love slow paced movies if the story's interesting. And by this point, besides the shocking, jarring moment that I had the first time I watched it, I was on board with it. I wanted to see where the story went. I wanted to see how everything played out, and really how this movie was going to end, like how everything was going to go for our characters at the end of the day. So I was still on board with it, but I can see where a lot of people can really be taken out by, like I said, not only the jarring moment, but then it kind of takes this slower dip into this movie to where you're kind of trying to figure things out and really get into other stuff. And it's really even the revenge part, it's more of a slow revenge part of the movie. And so I can feel like that might not be for everybody, but like I said, the story to me was interesting enough to want me to keep going, but I can see where that can kind of be like a thing for some people. And now, really, the only negative I really have about this movie is the Kurt Russell character. I felt like we didn't get enough of him. He's only in this movie for maybe 10 minutes tops. And you don't really get to know a lot about him other than the fact that you hear stuff through other people that how much of a bad person he is, how he screws people over, how he's doing this or this or this, and he's just not a good person overall. I would have liked to have seen more of his character. That way you could have seen another side of him or seen things from his perspective. So as an audience member, it kind of gives you that tug and pull to where you're like, man, I kind of on board with both sides. So it's not just a one-sided story. So you're like, I can see where both characters are coming from. So I don't know what to do in this situation. I think those give like a good moral question to the audience. And like this movie's very one-sided. Like it's painted Kurt Russell as this villain. And I would have liked to have seen more of the stuff he's done. Maybe because I'm all for it if you're going to paint him as a villain. But let me see some of the stuff that made him villainous. Like instead of hearing it, like I want to hate this guy as much as everybody else does, and like how all these other people that he screwed over or just completely done bad things to. I want to be on board with them enough to where I can be like, yeah, I hate this guy. Let's take back what's ours or whatever. But I don't feel like we get any of that. Like I said, it's just very, very to the point. And yes, he's the villain. He's done this and that. So let's go. Which I get at the end of the day, this is already a 2.5 hour movie, so trying to squeeze in more stuff with his character would be a lot, but as selfishly, I would like to have seen more of his character, and plus I love Kurt Russell, so he's another character that I would love to have spent some more time with, even if it's a character that you're convincing me to hate, because I'm all for that. I love those movies to where you get those characters where you're like, man, I can't wait for this guy to get his comeuppance in this movie. And I feel like I didn't get that at all in this movie with his character. So they kind of shine a little bit of light on some stuff with another character that he's involved with, but again, can't give anything away. So that kind of shows more of that human side of it. But again, that's the little bit of human side that we get based on everything all the negative stuff that is said about him and how much of a horrible person he is. So you really don't get to make that decision for yourself. You're just like, okay, yeah, this guy's the villain. And that's it. That's the end of the day. So like I said, that's my only really big negative about this movie. But at the end of the day, this is a movie I absolutely recommend everyone to go out and support, go out and check it out, and just create your own opinion of it, because I've seen a lot of movies, and this is a movie that I don't think I could compare it to anything else. Like, it has elements of other stuff, like certain, plot points or certain elements, like I said, of other stuff, but as a full movie, I couldn't compare this movie to anything else that I've seen. And it's one of those things as well to where if you feel like modern movies now are very sanitized to kind of appeal to masses of people, this movie's not that at all. This movie is very unique. It stands on its own. It's very original in the story that it's telling and the way it goes about telling the story. And even though I had those moments where I felt like, obviously the second half was slower than the first half and whatnot, I still can't disagree that this movie is fantastic. I think it's a really great movie, and I love these movies like this that have this little slice of life moments in it, or has stuff with music that has messages in it, that has all these things in it that make it really unique and stand out among a bunch of other movies that are out there now. And this movie does that in spades and has all of that. And while it's just something original and something that we don't get anymore, this is a movie that in a lifetime I never thought that would come out in 2026. It's just the type of movie that I was like, the movie like this will never get made again. And this is that type of movie. It is just so nice and refreshing to have a movie that is so raw and real and very grounded in the human condition and really tells a human story among these massive blockbuster movies of Marvel and DC and Star Wars and these huge IP movies like that. It's nice to have a break from that and have movies like this, because like I said, we don't get them a lot anymore. So this is a movie that I really wish I could say more about certain things but I just don't want to give away what's going on. But I think there's something in this movie for everyone, despite how you feel about certain things. And even if this movie still is something that appealed to you that you really wanted to go see, don't listen to my opinion. I'm just here to give you my personal opinion. This is a movie that a lot of people loved, and I absolutely love it. Yes, I have my mixed elements on it, but at the end of the day, I still can't deny how great of a movie this really is. So if this is a movie that was on your radar, still absolutely go see it. If it's a movie you've never heard of, I implore you to really go see it, because I just want more movies like this to be made. I want more stories like this to be told, and we're so lucky that we got one like this to begin with. So please, if this movie is playing anywhere near you, please go see it, because it's just totally worth your time. But thank you, everybody. That is my review for The Rivals of Amziah King. If this is the review that you're finding me on, please come over to the channel and check out all my 2026 reviews so far. I'll leave a card somewhere in one of these corners. I don't know which one it's going to be, so it's going to be in one of these. And I'm very curious, what is your favorite Matthew McConaughey movie? Is it more of his serious dramatic work, or are you more into the rom-com stuff? Because I have a pretty big mixture of both. I just love him as an actor. It's hard for me to pick a favorite of his, but what is your favorite? We'll talk about that down below. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way I can see all of you beautiful people in the next one. Thank you all so very, very much.